Hey, if you're watching this video, it means you've clicked the link to pay for the build series for our hydraulic hole punch. And I just wanted to mention before you start watching the rest of the video, check the link of this video down below and you'll find a link to the cut list that'll show you all the exact cuts by the different dimensions and different material lists, and also a shopping list for the link to where you're going to purchase this at, the linear bearings, the screws, everything you need to put this together. There's a shopping list with the links and websites and so forth that you need to make to do the purchases. So we'll just get right into the build video. The first thing we're going to do is give you an overview of everything involved in this. I'm going to give you a quick overview of what's going to be used in the project, and then we'll drill into each piece and show you in a little bit more detail kind of the components involved, and then we'll get into the actual build process. So the first thing you're going to want to do is purchase one of these on eBay. At the time this video is being made, these are $6.99, I believe, with free shipping, but I've got a link in the description below. And these are probably sold on other websites, maybe Amazon, other, resold through other means that have the same dimensions. This is an imported electromagnetic hole punch, and it comes in this steel shipping container here, and I'll show you the contents and what comes with it. So we're going to build a table for it out of some 1-inch square tubing. That's what I have available. It should be plenty rigid for this. You can use angle iron, you can use other dimensions, you can make it out of wood if you wanted to. But for this build video, for the how-to step-by-step, we're going to build it out of 1-inch angle iron. The adjustment method is going to be using the linear rails with linear bearings, and then we've got a foot pedal there that we're going to use to help automate the process. Okay, so let's take you in closer to each one of these and then we'll go from there. All right, just a quick look at the contents of what you're going to get. You're going to get an oiling bottle here that just you can lube your steel before you punch the hole to make it release a little easier. You're going to get 4 punches and dies in the sizes that are linked in the description. It's going to come with this little toolkit that gives you a handle, some wrenches to be able to replace the dies, and some Allen wrenches to make other adjustments and so forth. And then you're going to get a base, and we'll switch over and show you that in a second, the base and the actual unit. All right, so here is the actual unit itself. This base comes unmounted, separate in the box, and it just has 2 bolt holes. In fact, we're going to use this. In fact, you could use this whole platform to make your adjustable station with if you wanted to. I don't happen to like it, and then later at another point, if I wanted to set this up separately, I would still have this available to me. I don't like it because the welds are not particularly good, and it's not on there square, so you'd end up having to sort of re-square it and do a bunch of work to it. And the method I'm going to show you is going to be a lot easier than that. All right. So this Allen bolt here removes the scraper unit, which detaches it from the die once you punch through, and then you see there's access inside of there to get to these Allen bolts there to be able to take your punch out, and your bottom die out can come out here. So 4 Allen bolts will allow you to change out the actual punch and the die, the bottom die. And then this is a release right here, releases the hydraulic tension. It does it on its own when you punch, and it retracts itself, but if it's not releasing hard enough, you can lower that to get it to release even more. Okay, so moving on around and showing you more about what we're going to be using here. Some 1-inch square tubing to build the main table out of. This is some 2-inch by 2-inch by 1/8 inch thick angle iron, and we're going to be using these to make the mounting brackets for the linear movement for it. So again, you only need 2 pieces of this, about 2 inches long, so really a pretty easy thing to get and make available. All right, so and by the way, the square tubing and the angle iron is available at Lowe's, Home Depot, or your local steel yard. You know, in any length that you want, or up, it links up to 3 or 4 feet. So next, you're going to need these linear motion bearings, and I'll have a link in the description for the rails themselves. And these particular rails are the 20 millimeter ones, and you'll need the matching bearings that go with it. The bearings have a hole spacing of 1 3/8 on center, and it is a square hole pattern. So you know, if you just take one edge to one edge, you see you get 1 3/77 or 1 3/8, and if you do it this way, you get the same matching setup there. And the bolt holes, the threaded holes in these themselves are, take an M6x1 bolt, and you'll need something in about the 15 to 20 millimeter length. So when you go to Home Depot and you look in the cabinets there, you know, you'll see that they have different lengths and so forth. And these are just some stainless ones that I already had, and I cut these off. They were way too long. I had them in stock in a longer length, but let me convert this over to metric. You can see that's 18 millimeters. You can get away with probably even like a 10 to 15 millimeter one. But yeah, you can pick up those up at Home Depot, and I'll put a link to some online if you just want to be able to order all this. And this is the last component that we're going to wire in here. This is going to be a foot pedal. This is a name brand one. It's Timco. It's got this cover plate. It's $33. I'll have a link to a more inexpensive one that's about $15 that you can order off eBay with free shipping. That'll do the same thing, and we'll just wire this up. You'll need an old extension cord as well to cut the end off of it to make this work correctly. But you'll have that, you know, just laying around, or pick up one up at Home Depot or so forth. But I'll have a link to this as well. So, all right, we'll get started with the build here, and just wanted to give you a quick overview of the components involved. Oh, one last thing. We're going to use, in addition to the square tubing, we're going to use a little bit of sheet metal as well to make the deck for the top. All right, so we're going to get started on the build and take you through it step by step. Okay, so step number one is going to be to cut out your angle iron. And again, this is 2-inch, you can see that there, 2-inch by 2-inch by 1/8 angle iron. And we're going to need to cut these 2 inches long. So it's almost a 2-inch square basically with 2 sides missing from it. So we're going to measure here 2 inches. And if you measure the actual block, it's just a little bit under 2 inches, okay? So what I'm going to do is mark it at 2 inches. You don't need to get fussy with this, but I'm going to mark it at 2 inches there, and I'm going to cut on the line, you know, and cut through the line instead of leaving a little on the outside of the line like you normally would to allow a full 2-inch dimension. And that'll get us down to the where we want to be. All right, so I'm going to just get this lined up underneath the blade and take the line out as it cuts. All right, and before I do that, I'm going to set this. Now, for you guys doing this at home, you can cut this in any way you want. You can cut it with a hacksaw, you can cut it with an angle grinder, whatever a chop saw, whatever method that you use to cut with is what you'll use. But again, we're looking to get 2 pieces cut, and we want to make sure they're the same, you know, meaning the 2 pieces are identical, because that'll be important at a later point. So what I've done to get 2 pieces cut at the same length is set up a stop here. So we'll go ahead and cut our 2 pieces out. Alright, so now you see we have 2 pieces that are cut identical in width. I mean, they're spot on because we used the stop. If you cut yours with some other method and you're not able to get them to be the exact same width, like these are, and you end up with one that's a little longer than the other, what you can do is just, you know, work on getting them both equal with a grinder, you know, whatever method you have, sander, grinder, to get them both at the same length, because that'll become important when we set the repetition on the bolt pattern up. Alright, so the next step you're going to want to do is clean up all your edges. If you've cut this with an angle grinder or an abrasive chop saw, you're going to have a big burr on one edge. On these we have a little small burr with a bandsaw cut, but it's going to be really important that you get the burrs off the edges, because this next operation, when we start to put the holes in it, the method we're going to use, or I'm going to show you that you can use, it'll be real important that those burrs are off there. It can mess you up. So we're going to just take 80 grit on a little grinder and clean up the edges. Alright, so just clean them up like that. And then optionally, you know, at some point you can go ahead and start prepping these for paint. If you do plan to paint them, you don't have to paint them. So we're going to just use a Scotch-Brite pad here on an angle grinder as well. Alright, so you're pretty well prepped and ready to go to the next step once you complete the deburr and just a little cleanup on this. Alright. Alright, so you can see how this is going to mount. We need to transfer these hole locations over this so we can drill them precisely. So what we're doing here is we're taking the distance right there is 148, and we're adding 116 thousandths to it, which is half. Alright, so again, we've got this distance here, the 264 thousandths. Now we need to get this distance. So got about 185 thousandths there from the edge of that to from this edge to the edge of the bolt hole location, and then again we add our half of this distance, 116 thousandths. So 185 and 116 will give 301 thousandths. So now we're gonna dial up 301 thousandths. I'm gonna leave a couple thousandths extra just to push it to the inside a little bit more. All right, and so we're going to use our I've locked in the edge of the caliper here so that it doesn't move. We're just going to scribe a line off of this edge here. So hopefully that line's showing up for you. Now we need to come off of this edge and do the 264 thousandths. Go a little bit more. We'll go 266, 267 in that range. And we're going to scribe a line the other way from the edge. Alright, now we're going to center punch that. Alright, now I'm going to line up my center punch mark on the X that we just created there. Just kind of double check it and see if we need to adjust it a little bit. And it needs to go Alright, you can see we got a stop set up in here so that we can drop this plate in and get this precisely mated up, and then we'll close the jaws on it. Alright, and then what we're going to use is a little just a center punch tool here to locate the hole. and we'll bring this down. You can see that we get it pretty close there. Really important that you spend the time getting this as close as you can. So we were just picking up our center punch mark. Alright. So that's hitting down in the center of that center punch mark there. So now we're going to swap that out and put a center drill in there. This will ensure we get the hole started accurately. So that's all we really need there. Now we're going to put a drill bit in, or a drill. And our hole size, the bolt size is 232 thousandths. And we're going to just use a 1/4 inch standard drill bit. Everybody's got one of those. And if you don't have a good one, sharp one, just get one for this project. You can go to Home Depot and buy them individually, or Lowe's for $3, $4, whatever, and it just will make it a lot funner and easier when you have a nice new sharp drill bit. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and drill this hole. Drill is bent or something. It's got a lot of run out, so I'm going to get a different one to drill the rest of them with. I mean, it'll work, but alright, so now we'll swap our bit out and put our pickup center finder here. And this is just an old automatic center punch that I took the pin out of it, and so it's straight and accurate, and it's got a sharp point to it so we can pick up our hole mark. So we should be coming to the center of that hole, and we should just be able to move this straight back and pick up this other hole. Moving the camera with the table there. Bear with me. And it's lining right up over that mark. Get it. I mean, it may be off just slightly, but it's really close there. And we'll drill our next hole. Alright, so before you go any further, one of the things that you want to do is just double check your work so far. So we'll just hold that over that, and hopefully this is picking up in the camera. But you can see that those holes are lining up really nicely with each other, and I'm not holding it on there straight, but you can get the idea that they're in line and they're centered up and they have the right amount of clearance, and your bolts will be able to screw right down in there no problem. Alright, now we're just going to keep repeating the procedure. So we'll put our locating pin back in. And again, you can do this moving these things around, picking up these center points on your drill press, manually moving it, however you need to move it to be able to pick up these hole locations so that we get the consistent. So you see that's over the center. We're going to move this down, and it should be pretty well over it. Man, look at that. No other movements, just right there on it. Alright, so we're now positioned to drill that hole. Again, we're taking extra time, extra care to get these lined up as close to as accurate as possible. Because if you don't get these lined up right, when you get ready to be able to move your hole punch on the, let's see, let me put the center drill in. You get ready to move your hole punch on the linear rails, it's gonna want to bind up on you, if you don't have these, or you won't be able to get this bolted up correctly. Alright, and we're going to drill this hole. Alright, now we're going to repeat the same process again. We're going to take our drill out, put our center locator back in, so this is going to be pretty close but off just a touch. Again, my vise may not be trammed in perfectly, so we're going to trust our measurements that we made before more than we are the vise tramming. Go back a little bit. Alright, that looks pretty good there. It's actually not far off from where we were. I ended up probably moving it more than I should have. Alright, so we will put our center drill in and get this last hole drilled. What you can do is as you drill these positions, rotate the part out. So you're not constantly moving like that. Just take this out, put this in, and that way you get all in the same spot. Alright, looks like a pretty even hole alignment there, just visually looking at it, so we'll try to bolt it on and see what we get. Alright, so the next thing after you get your holes drilled that you might have to do, you may or may not, depending on the angle iron that you purchased and this inside radius here, but as you guys know, the inside radius of angle iron, or the inside corner of it, has a radius on it, and it's interfering with the bolt being able to tighten all the way down. So we just got a carbide burr here on a die grinder. Most of you guys probably have that, or you could just you know, come in with a grinding disc if you wanted to, and just kind of gouge out that corner, you know, whatever is best for you. But this is how I'm going to do it here for this one. Alright, so just that little bit of clearancing that we need here to allow these M6x1 bolts to drop in and be able to bolt them all the way down. Probably best to tighten the back ones up first and get those pulled down tight. Then you can tighten your front ones last. I'll just cinch these down. I mean, they don't have to be super tight, you know. Alright, you see we got that on. It fits nice and flush with this edge. A little bit of a clearance on the back edge there. And you can loosen these back up. We'll probably need to later to make a minor adjustment for them. But so we'll proceed to the next step now. Alright, so the next thing you want to do is go ahead and take your stand off, so we can do a little test fit here in our new brackets that we just made. So we'll get this taken off. Alright, so the next thing, now that we've got this taken apart, is we're going to try to locate our first mounting hole for this. Alright, so we don't want this up above the top edge, so we're just going to put that right there, and you can see I've got my finger riding along the bottom, so I'm just going to slide this to the left, and that's about where it looks like it's going to be. So I'm going to put a line right here coming off the center of that hole. Okay, so then we're going to take our calipers and find the center, and this is just a little bit under, actually right at 2 inches, so we're going to go to 1 inch. And put a line here, or a scribe mark. So I'm going to mark this just so we can see it. Alright, so now you can see we got our placement here in the center. Come over just a little bit. Alright, so we're going to take these back apart and go over to the drill press and drill those center marks out, and then we'll be ready to test fit these on here. Alright, you can see we're back over here at the drill press, and you see our hole location that we marked earlier just a second ago. Now we're going to go ahead and pop a hole in that, on that mark. Alright, so after we drill those holes, we just move the drill press back by about a 1/2 inch. This next move here is not critical, but if you want to know the exact measurement, if you're following along on this and building it precisely like I am, the exact center to center measurement is 452 thousandths for what we're doing there. You could make it an even 500 thousandths or a 1/2 inch just to make it easy for what you're doing, but you'll see in a second that these will become reference holes that we'll use to drill and tap into the base. Okay, so if you take a look at what we got here, we've got our brackets bolted on using the original factory bolts. we've got this adjusted because it's only got one bolt in it. We can pivot it this way, and we've got it on a very, very flat surface. Suggest you find the flattest surface you have in your shop for this exercise. Now we've taken a square, and we have this edge square to the bottom of the table, square to the face of the bottom die, which means that we've got this parallel. All this is parallel all the way up. So now what we want to do is tighten these bolts. They're already snug. And be careful not to twist it in there. And double check your squareness again. So I'm going to tighten these up. And pretty tight. You can see we're still square there, and we're still square at the bottom down here. So now what we want to do is mark those hole locations so we can drill and tap into the bottom of the base so that we can get that permanently bolted square. Alright, so now we're going to come in and mark our hole. And we'll mark the other side. Alright, so we've got our hydraulic punch in the vise here on the mill. We're using a 1/4 inch end mill to center up on our mark, and we just, move the mill table back and forth. You could do this by hand, okay? You could, clamp this in a vise on a bench, or somehow on the ground, or use some 2x4 framing and clamp it together. But we got a mill, we're just using it. But you can, this does not have to be perfect. The holes are drilled oversized. We got room, but you want to be as precise as you can and use all the tools you have available to you to try to get it centered up as close as you can. Alright, so this is probably going to be the trickiest part, is unless you have a huge selection of drill bits, you're going to need to get either a 5mm drill bit, which are not always commonly available, or a number 4 drill bit. Be a around 200 thousandths. So there's probably others that are close to it, and I'll put a link on the screen here to other drill bits that'll be good enough for what we're trying to do here. Maybe more numerical sizes or whatever. But if not, you can you can get these. You can order them. You can, if you have a Fastenal nearby, they may have one in stock. So you can find a source for it. And the other thing you could do is, you don't have to use the same hole size, the M6x1. You could make it 1/4-20 if you wanted to. Probably make it a lot simpler. You'd end up with 2 different bolt hole sizes here next to each other, which, not a major deal. Not like you're going to be bolting and unbolting. But so we're just going to go ahead and drill and tap this with the M6, with a number 4 drill bit and an M6x1 tap. And so we'll just show you that here. Actually, I'm going to center drill this because this casting here has a lot of roughness to the texture, and that'll definitely cause our drill bit to wander. So we'll center drill it first, and then go ahead and do our final drill. Alright, you could power tap this, you know, pretty easily, but given that it's a blind hole, I didn't want to take a chance on it, so we'll just hand tap it here. That's probably what you'll be doing as you're watching this video. So we'll just go in until we feel it stop or get a little tight. Break the chip every once in a while, every few turns, just spin it back a little bit and break the chip. Alright, feels like it's trying to bottom out there, and that feels like the bottom. So we'll take this back out. Our hole tapped. I'm going to do a little test fit here. Looks like it's money. So we got plenty of wiggle room to get that lined up straight and then tighten those down good. Alright, so now we're going to just go ahead and flip this over the other way and repeat the process. I'm going to just do this off camera. I'm not going to make you watch this, but it's the same process on the other side. Alright, so we got our square back in here. Everything's squared back up. We got our holes drilled. Now we're just going to tighten this down for one last time and get it pretty tight, because we don't want to move it around. Alright, so this will give our adjustment in and out. Obviously we don't need near that much travel, but alright, so now the next thing we're going to do is build the table for this thing. And I'm building this a custom height, actually to fit the same height as this station right here. And for me, the legs are going to be 23 and 5/16 to allow room for casters and all that. So you can build these legs any length you want, and you know, a good table height would be probably somewhere around 36 to 40 inches, something in that range for a, you know, a standard comfortable workbench height. So yeah. Alright, so we got our table legs cut. The next thing we're going to cut is the frame for the top of the table, and we're going to make that 12 inches deep by 15 inches wide. And again, you can make this any dimension that you want, whatever fits your needs. But we're going to do it this way. Because of the way we're going to build this, we're going to take an inch off each end. So we're going to make this, the cuts are going to be 10 by 13. So we need 2 of them at 10, 2 of them at 13. Alright, so we're using our strong hand 3-axis clamping vise here to make this table, and so we'll just keep welding and rotating to make sure we get it good and square. And one of the keys is, while it's still clamped, make sure you let it cool down. So if you start taking it all apart while it's still cooling off, that's when the actual drawing and all takes effect. Alright, well, you saw in the last little segment there we got the table built, and that turned out pretty good. You can kind of get an idea of what we're going for here. This is going to mount, up on top here. We'll have the foot pedal down low in the center, and now we need to build a shelf for this to sit down here so that the top or the deck of the table is at the same height as this. And how you're going to do that is, remember the measurement or the procedure that we did earlier, where we use this square to get the height and the squareness for our angle brackets there. Well, it also will serve as the distance between the bottom of these rails here and the mounting surface. So basically we need to come down and put a shelf exactly that height, so right in here. So that's going to be the next thing we're going to do, is we're going to cut out a couple of tubes and get our shelf built, and then we'll keep showing you how we're going. But in terms of the distance here, I'll get you an actual measurement, because I've got this thing on here backwards, and so I'll get the actual measurement here in a second. Alright, so if we take a look at this measurement from here to here, which would basically be the from the deck of the table down to the base, it's 4 9/16. Okay, so this dimension 4 9/16 is what you're going to want to measure down. Or if you just set your tool like we've done here, the square, you don't need to measure anything. You're just going to hold that there and butt your next tube up right up underneath that, and you'll be good to go. Alright, hopefully you can see this good. We're going to have a piece of 16 gauge cold rolled sheet metal up on top. You can put 1/8 inch, whatever you have at home. The best thing to do here is set your square up on top. I've got a piece of this clamped here, which will simulate the spacing of this up here. So you just want to make sure you have this dimension the same here and here, and that means you've got it level and square to the top. And you can go ahead and, well, there we go. Go ahead and get it tacked and welded in place. So we'll do that next. Alright, so I went ahead and cut the rest of the tubes and welded them in off camera, but basically you saw me do this one back here, or this one. They're all the same length. These width tubes are 13 inches or 15 inches overall when you add in the vertical tubes. And then these are 10 inches long or 12 inches overall when you add in the vertical tube. Alright, so now we're going to cut this gap out of the top here. And you want to measure, this is going to be 2 3/4 inches wide. You want to take your center measurement and then measure 1 3/8 to either side of the center, and that'll get your outside measurements. I'm also going to cut this right on the line, or maybe just to the inside of the line, to allow a 1-inch flange to cap off the inlet. Alright, and the reason we put these uprights in place here is all this is under tension, you know, from the weld process. So by having these uprights in first, it relieves a little bit of that and kind of keeps that stabilized. Alright, well, we see we got the hole punch mounted into place, and we have it clamped. So we're going to just go ahead and drill through this one hole here on each side. Alright, so we got the front one drilled. Now we're going to drill the back one. Alright, I ended up using some 832 machine screws in the front, and in the back here I've got 1/4 inch. So I'm going to swap the front ones out for 1/4 inch as well, 1/4 20. Alright, you see we cut these 2 bars here and cope the ends of it, so it's 10 inches inside plus an extra inch. So these bars need to be cut 11 inches and cope that, so we can do 2 things: 1, tie it in, and 2, cap off those open ends there. So we'll go ahead and get those welded up. Alright, so we cut out the top. We cut ours a little bit oversized, but if you're making it the same dimension I am, the top would be 12 inches this way, 18 inches this way. I mean, ours a little bit bigger. We're gonna do you know, fold the edges and wrap the edges around, but you don't have to do that. So we're gonna use our horizontal bandsaw. First time we're really using it for anything serious, so we'll see how it goes here. All right, I wanted to show you the fence setup that we've made here, and you see it's just a piece of 1.5-inch angle iron. We got 2 holes drilled in it. Drilled those off camera, but I just lined them up with these rails here, so we're going to drill through these rails. But the important thing is to keep it square all the way across to the other fence and keep it flush with the back edge of the throat of this thing. So a little bit of a critical setup here, and what we're going to do is take this square. You could use any kind of square, I just happen to have this one, and we're going to run this back through the throat, and we're going to square it up to this edge and then push the rule all the way up against the back edge of the throat, and you see it allowed this fence edge here to square itself up. Now we're going to clamp that and drill the holes while it's clamped, so we maintain that alignment. So I'm going to drill one bolt hole and then put the bolt in it, and then drill the other one. But I'm going to put the clamp on. I'm being real careful not to twist it, and you see it already is twisting, but that's okay. We'll realign it here. Make sure we got it in line. Alright, I'm just going to hold that there, all three together, while I get this clamped in. Now that shouldn't move very easily. Okay, it's not. Alright, so we're going to drill well, we can't get a drill in there to that. So I have to take this clamp loose here that's holding it to the forward position. And we'll pull this out. Alright, you see we got all the holes drilled now for our fence, and these are 1/4 20 by 1.5-inch bolts, and just using lock nuts, Nylock lock nuts on the back side. But I'll have a list of the bolts and sizes and all in the cut list, materials list. So we got this all squared up here with this edge, and these are I drilled those with a 17/64 drill bit, so they have a little bit of clearance, so you can adjust those a little bit to get them squared up. Now we got our sheet metal made, and we got to get the holes drilled in the sheet metal, and so we'll show you that. Alright, so here's our top that we made. Again, you know, I bent this up on the sheet metal brake and cut the slot out. You can make this however you want. You don't have to bend it up, you can just make a flat top for it. So we got this fitting pretty snug there all the way around. So I made this little point here, and I'm going to reach up through the hole because there's too much stuff in the way to get a transfer punch or anything else in there. So I'm going to reach up in that hole and just scratch a line on the back side of that. Alright, I can see the scratch marks there. All of them are showing up. So we'll get those drilled out. Alright, so I drilled those out with a little small pilot bit. Now I'm going to come back through with a step bit, and this will help find the center of the hole. It'll kind of make its own center. All right, I want to show you a couple more things that I've done. These are simple little fabrication exercises. I took a piece of angle iron, the same 1.5" angle iron, drilled a hole here, drilled one there, and just tacked on a nut. And this will be our set screw to set the depth. Okay, so if we're, sliding this in and out to set the depth, then we'll just, where we want the depth set to, we'll just run the screw in there and that'll hold it. So back it off, adjust it, run the screw in, that'll hold it. Alright, and then the other thing I did, screw that in, turn this around, where you can see this. Make sure we're in camera there. From the factory, this thing comes with a depth stop that gets mounted down here with a wing nut like that, and you won't need that anymore. So what you do is you take it and we just ground off one edge of it there, and then flip it around, bolt it the other way. So now I need to grind it a little bit more, but so it's not fitting on there exactly right. So now we're going to use that as a pointer for our depth measurement. So when this slides forward, this will slide forward, and we'll have a reference scale out here for setting common depths. So we'll show you that a little bit later, but I just wanted to show you those two modifications. So just flip that around, bolt that back in, and grind this. You can see that profile that I've ground away there, and just have to grind it a little bit more to get it to fit. Alright, so one of the last things that we're doing here is we took some 3/8 by 4 flat bar, I'm sorry, 1/4 inch by 4 flat bar, and we cut 2 pieces of it, and these pieces are 18 inches long. We just did a little trim out here and drilled 2 holes for some casters on each one. The casters we got at Harbor Freight. I'll show you those. We just laid them on and traced out the holes, and we offset these, spaced them out because this thing is a little bit on the top heavy side, and by spacing these out, that should help stabilize it a little bit. So we're just going to weld these legs to the bottom of these plates, and we just kind of eyeball the fitment. We'll probably spend a little bit more time and try to get it, get these guys fitting in there a little bit better. But we'll go ahead and get it welded up and show you what it looks like. Alright, so we finished up the video, the complete build on this with just the final assembly, putting it together. Really straightforward. Hopefully you got some value out of this and understand the process of what all it takes to put this together. If you have any questions about it as a paid viewer of this video, feel free to email me at any time. I'll be glad to answer any questions about it. And if you need to call me about it, I'll give you my number and be happy to talk to you. So again, thanks for paying and for watching the video. And I hope you build something really cool with what you learned from the video. All right, thank you.